Weeks ago, I wrote to all of the party leaders asking them to make a commitment to construct this very critical transit project in the next term of government. And have to say, I'm very pleased that Andrew Scheer will be the first leader that will step forward and sign a shovel earmarked for the commencement of the Yonge Subway extension. As the chair of the York Region Rapid Transit Corporation, I've spent my tenure, along with Mayor Barrow, advocating for long-term funding to make the Yonge Subway extension happen. I made a similar request during the provincial election of party leaders, and Premier Ford followed through on his commitment to fund the completion of the project, which was outlined in the provincial transit plan. This is not about party lines. It's about critical transit lines. And so we no longer can take a back seat to other projects in the GTA. And to give you some sense of why this transit line is needed, we are one of the fastest growing regions in North America, home to nearly 1.2 million people, and that population will reach 1.8 million by the year 2041. The Yonge Subway extension has a potential ridership of 165,000 riders a day, and it will significantly ease the travel times and drastically reduce the already over 2,500 daily bus trips that happen along the Yonge corridor. So sorry to use this terminology, but when you look at the sheer numbers, this subway line is needed. And I want to say again, thank you to Andrew Scheer for coming forward and making a commitment to the subway, a subway actually that had the environmental assessment completed back in 2009. So the people of York Region are fed up. We need the federal government to have this project commence in the next term of government, and I'm very pleased that Andrew Scheer is here today making that commitment on behalf of his party. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, the Mayor of Richmond Hill, also a board member of the York Region Rapid Transit Corporation.
Thank you very much, Frank, and I appreciate Mayor, so we're colleagues and friends, Mayor Scarpetti. And I wanted to also bring you greetings from certainly the region of York, and standing here on this beautiful spot in Thornhill, you can see 4 cities. The one directly behind me is Richmond Hill, my favorite city. Vaughan is to the west, Markham to the east, and the city of Toronto to the south. And this subway will impact every city along the Yonge Street Way, and that's why it's needed so much. I truly want to thank you for visiting us, and I want to thank the Honourable Andrew Scheer, Conservative leader, for coming into our community and making this special announcement. And with that, I would introduce the Honourable Andrew Scheer. Please come forward. And his beautiful wife.
Your Worship. Thanks very much. Team, how's it going? Well, good morning, everyone. It is so great to be here today with Markham Mayor Frank Scarpetti and Richmond Hill Mayor David Barrow. Both are great advocates for their communities, their constituents, and issues that matter the most. Whenever I'm in the GTA, I hear it all the time. People spend way too much sitting in their cars or stuck on crowded subway platforms every day. Here in Toronto, the average time it takes for you to get from point A at home to point B at work is about 42 minutes. That's almost an hour and a half every single day, spent in gridlock and in overcrowded transit, away from your family and loved ones. Now, in 2015, Justin Trudeau was elected on a promise to get much needed commuter infrastructure built. And he made a lot of promises in that election campaign: to balance the budget, to help the middle class, to be accountable and ethical. And here we are 4 years later, and Justin Trudeau has broken almost every promise he's made to you. The budget isn't balanced, taxes have gone up, and he's been found guilty of breaking ethics laws not once, but twice. Quite simply, Justin Trudeau is not as advertised. In
2015, he made a lot of promises. He would balance the budget and help the middle class. He would be accountable and ethical. And here we are, 4 years later, with Justin Trudeau, who has broken just about all the promises he made to you. The budget has not been balanced, taxes are going up, and he was found guilty of violating the ethics law twice. Justin Trudeau just isn't the one he claimed to be.
His promise was to spend $187 billion on infrastructure across Canada. He said he would build badly needed projects right here in Toronto. We know Justin Trudeau will do or say anything to get elected. In 4 years, what does he have to show for that $187 billion promise? The Parliamentary Budget Officer states that for every dollar Trudeau promised to spend on infrastructure, he's actually only spent 60 cents. In other words, he's given you the worst of both worlds, massive deficits with virtually nothing to show for it. The PBO even revealed that Trudeau's so-called infrastructure plan doesn't actually exist.
The parliamentary budget officer said that for every dollar that Trudeau promised to spend on infrastructure, he actually only spent 60 cents. In other words, he's spending your money, but nothing's getting done. The parliamentary budget officer even revealed that the so-called infrastructure plan under Trudeau does not even exist.
Now, earlier this year, the Ontario government asked Trudeau to help pay for 2 new subway projects to get Ontarians moving, the Ontario Line and the Yonge subway extension. But Trudeau refused to commit funding. Not only he refused to commit funding, citing a lack of a business case. Now, not only is that comical coming from the highest spending Prime Minister in Canadian history, but there happens to be a business case. They just won't look at it. As Prime Minister, I will not play politics when it comes to helping you get ahead. For those of you here in the GTA, that means a new Conservative government will work with the provincial government to get shovels in the ground for these 2 critical projects. The Yonge subway extension will extend that line 7.4 kilometers, connecting Toronto to Markham, Vaughan, and Richmond Hill, one of the fastest growing regions in the province. It will replace the 2,500 bus trips per day that service this part of Yonge Street, helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But we won't stop there. We'll also help build and fund the Ontario Line and make sure that that gets built. This 15-kilometer project will connect you with work, friends, family, and reduce travel times across Toronto with a critical east-west and north-south route. The Ontario Line will have more frequent trains and 30% more capacity than the current Yonge Line. And getting shovels in the ground will create thousands of construction jobs for years, providing lasting benefits for Ontario. These are the types of projects that will deliver real relief to everyone who drives and takes transit in the GTA. It's about time you had a government that gets shovels in the ground, gets projects built, and works for you to get ahead. These projects are part of a new Conservative government's plan to prioritize infrastructure projects across Canada that reduce commute times. When it comes to deciding where money goes, we'll put in place a simple criteria. One simple question: will this project reduce commute times? Other projects across Canada include the Third Link across the St. Lawrence between Quebec City and Lévis.
The other projects across Canada include the Third Link between Lévis and across the St. Lawrence River, as well as...
We will work with provincial and territorial governments to build these projects at the right price on the right timelines. And we will continue to fund all projects promised and committed to by the previous government.
We will work with provincial governments and territorial governments to carry out these projects at the right price and on time. And we will continue to fund all the promised projects, all those promised by a previous government.
I will get rid of Justin Trudeau's infrastructure bank. After 4 years, let's call it for what it is, a $35 billion failure. In 2018 alone, Trudeau's infrastructure bank requested more than $11 million just to cover operating costs before the bank even funded a single project. That's $11 million that could have been put towards much needed infrastructure like the Yonge Subway Extension and the Ontario Line. I will also pull Canada's $256 million investment in the Chinese-controlled Asian Infrastructure Bank. There's simply no way Canadian taxpayers should be funding new roads and bridges in other countries when there are so many much-needed projects right here in places like the GTA. 4 more years of Justin Trudeau means 4 more years of delayed projects and longer, more expensive commutes. It means a higher carbon tax that will add 31 cents a litre to the price of gas, which commuters here in the GTA simply can't afford. And Justin Trudeau himself revealed to be a high carbon hypocrite when we found out he was traveling all across the country with a second gas guzzling plane. And his excuse that he just pays the carbon offsets shows how millionaires like Trudeau and his trust fund buddies will always be able to afford for the privilege of hanging on to their lifestyle no matter the cost. But hard-working Canadian moms and dads can't afford his ever-increasing taxes. And that is why a new Conservative government will cancel his carbon tax. We'll prioritize projects like the Ontario Line and the Yonge Subway Extension here in the GTA, cutting down your commute, while putting more money in your pockets so you can get ahead. We'll bring in a green public transit tax credit, making monthly transit passes more affordable and taking cars off the road, reducing both congestion and emissions. We'll bring in a universal tax cut for every Canadian that will save a couple with average salaries $850 a year.
We will provide a tax credit for public transit that will make monthly passes more affordable and take more cars off the road, which will reduce emissions. We will provide a tax cut to everyone, and that will allow the average family to save $860 a year.
Sports and learning activities, making it more affordable to enroll your child in extracurricular activities. And we'll increase the age credit by $1,000, putting $300 back into the pockets of a senior couple. We'll make maternity benefits tax-free, putting up to $4,000 back into the pockets of new parents, all while building the much-needed transportation infrastructure Canadians need to get home quicker at the end of the day. On October 21st, Canadians decide who they trust to put more money in their pockets so they can get ahead. And when it comes to important projects